I'm Neal Lerner. I'm a faculty member in the English department at Northeastern University in Boston. The practice I want to talk about is one I was just describing to a colleague yesterday. It's one in which I have students develop the grading criteria or the rubrics that I then use to grade their papers, and they also use in the process of peer review. So that usually starts after they've written a draft, so they have some sense of what is involved. And then I ask them to individually brainstorm what they see as the characteristics of effective writing along the lines of the task that they just did. And once they've each assembled lists, I have them get together in groups and come up with a kind of group list. And then from the groups, we then do a class list and write them on the board or put them on a slide or whatever the technology is. And then we go through a process of kind of negotiating both what they mean. So for instance, if a group had said, we think a good paper is one that is interesting. And then I can say, well, what does interesting look like? What are the ways that we can kind of see what this might be? And so we expand, we discuss, we eliminate, we combine, usually come up with a list of anywhere from 6 to 8 criteria. I should add, I've done this with students from lowest level basic writing courses to advanced writing courses, and all do a very good job of doing it. Students, even if they can't themselves, aren't prepared yet to achieve excellence as writers, know in an abstract sense what good writing involves. So they're quite capable of doing this activity. One of the reasons to do it as well is, which I maybe should have said at the start, is it's a way for students to own the assessment criteria for the writing that they're doing. And I'm not unique in coming up with that idea, but I really have seen in classrooms how it works. So once students as a class, we've come up with a set of criteria that we think defines good writing for this task. I usually then hand out examples from previous semesters of students who've written this task, and we talk about them. We judge them according to the criteria that students have created. We think about what criteria seem to bring to bear on these and what criteria aren't there yet. What are we, in a broad sense, valuing that aren't being applied in the writing that we're seeing? We think about whether we need to rank the criteria, what's most important, what's least important, and the questions around grammar and usage and correctness always come up around then. Whether it's the thing that we should value the most or not. Usually it's not. And so when we do that kind of ranking, I often get in a nice conversation about, I ask students, well, what grade would you give it? And that always leads to them asking me, what grade did you give it when students wrote this paper in that previous semester? And I talk about that and why I gave the grade that I did. And so my grade tends to be higher than the ones that my students. They're a bit hardcore. I've found sort of consistently when they think in that kind of way. So once they've been through that process, then they use we've refined the criteria at this point. They use that criteria to do peer review as well, right? So that they have a strong sense of the framework that they want to use to give each other feedback and how that might work. And then I use the criteria to grade the final product as well. I find that I have very, very few instances in which students come to me and say, why did I get a whatever? Because they're invested, they have ownership of those criteria, they've been practicing with them in multiple ways. So it's time consuming. Really you have to dedicate a full class session, depending what time of the class session is, of course, to doing it. I do it with each of the projects that students do. Often there are 4 projects in a class, and for each one we develop different criteria. For multimodal projects, it's really particularly interesting. Sometimes if students aren't used to composing in multimodal environments, I give them guidance on talking about concepts of navigation and design and usability and the ways they might want to be thinking about those as they develop criteria. So, I mean, I play a guided role in pretty much all instances, but it's a practice in really comes down to grading student writing, which is the kind of thing that we all have to do as writing teachers, and we usually don't like to do. I can't say I still like to grade student writing, I'd rather respond to student writing, but it is a way to handle grading that I think satisfies my need to have students collaborate, to own the writing that they're doing, and own the assessment criteria for the writing that they're doing. So that's the practice that I want to